So you're thinking about making a move to Seattle, Bellevue, Everett, kind of the greater Puget Sound area, and you're wondering, what are some of the suburbs that I can live in here? Mill Creek may be your answer. Stay tuned. So when you're looking at relocating, you have to look at your wish list. What are the things that are really most important to you? And when a lot of people that I talk to have a good commute into the city, whether they're going into for a job in Seattle, Bellevue, or Everett, Washington, those are the three main employment hub cities in my neck of the woods. So we got to have good commuter access, and that's become less important over the last couple years with more people working remotely and that type of thing. So what we've seen is more excitement and enthusiasm for people moving out to the suburbs, and how far out they're willing to move depends in part on how frequently they think they may need to go into the city. Also, things like how much space they want in their yard, how much they can afford to pay, access to other amenities. But the Seattle area is so dense with so much housing and so many people living in a condensed area that we really have fairly high housing density until we get out into the boonies, which we're going to differentiate the boonies as being places where horses can live. Okay, if there are no horses there, it's not the boonies. So let's talk about some of the suburbs. And again, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that's on your wish list? I'm going to be highlighting the area of Mill Creek today, and I think Mill Creek is a really nice combination of wonderful place to live, great access to amenities. You feel like you're kind of in a remote, more woodsy location, but you can get in and get access to everything very easily, and also fantastic schools. So let's dive in and talk about what Mill Creek has to offer. While we're here, remember, we are making new videos every week to highlight different parts of town, what it's like living in Seattle, Bellevue, Everett, the best suburbs, the worst suburbs, things to know before you move here, all sorts of things that someone relocating to this area would be well advised to take a look at. So make sure you subscribe and mash the bell, as they say in the South, mash that bell, sugar, so you can get updates when we publish new videos. This channel is specifically devoted to this type of videos. There are not other formats that you will see here. You can check my other channel for those. So with that being said, thank you for subscribing. If you choose to, I'll remind you again at the end. You can see how you like it. But let's dive in on Mill Creek. So first, what I like to do is have people get oriented to the area. If you do not already live in Seattle, you may never have heard of Mill Creek, and it doesn't have any meaning for you. So looking here at the map, this where it says Seattle, this is downtown Seattle. That's they've got the Space Needle for us. This is where the downtown is, all the skyscrapers and that type of thing. So if you've come to Seattle as a tourist or for business, or you've seen pictures of Seattle, what you're seeing pictures of is right here. Now, all along this, all of these pictures are a little too much. Okay, so the freeway that goes north and south from Canada down through Seattle, and it actually goes down into Oregon and California as well. This is the I-5 freeway. It's our main thoroughfare. Traffic tends to be pretty slow on here for commuters, but that's where you got to go. And so if you're driving into Seattle, you're going to be driving on I-5. I would say Everett is kind of the northernmost point if you want to be driving in about an hour or less. Federal Way is the southernmost point. So you can see, like, kind of from this area up to this area is about an hour into Seattle. Now, if you're going into Bellevue, Bellevue is directly across from Seattle, right where my black arrow mouse is right now. This is Bellevue. Downtown Bellevue has skyscrapers and the whole bit, and it's directly across to the east from Seattle. So we call this area the east side. This is the east side of Lake Washington, which you can see in the middle. And we've got the University of Washington right there, right by this bridge. This is the 520 floating bridge. So these two bridges are the way to get back and forth. Now, if you live in Mill Creek, you're going to be up here where this red dot is on the map, and It's a pretty good, oh, I'm showing you pictures of parks. Okay. So Mill Creek is a pretty good location to access Seattle, and it's an even better location to access Bellevue. And of course, if you need to go up in Everett, you work at Boeing or something like that, it's a fantastic location as well. This is pretty much known as a quiet suburb. It's fairly woodsy, and you can see as you go off into this direction, you're going toward our Cascade Mountains. It starts becoming more forested and more mountainous. Monroe is the boonies because there are horses there. Snohomish is, I would say, a small historic town. It has a lot of antique shops. It's kind of a cool place to visit. I have an actual video of me like going there at Christmas and looking at the shop windows, and they decorate the shop windows and they have little 5Ks. And this is what I would call a bedroom community, but it's been growing quite a bit as more people are leaving the city and going into the suburbs and the boonies. So you're not in the boonies in Mill Creek. Mill Creek is, I would say, more recently developed, probably going to have newer construction homes, not necessarily a lot of building going on right there right now, but the homes that are here are going to be newer than the homes in downtown Seattle for the most part. So now that you know where it is, we'll zoom in a little bit so you can get an idea. This is the size of Mill Creek, and it's across from Linwood, which is another big suburb. Linwood is having the light rail put in, and it's also having Alderwood Mall, which is a big indoor-outdoor shopping center that's gotten a lot of interest from Canadians coming south. Our Northgate Mall in Seattle has just been demolished. So this is kind of the big mall. Linwood has tons of shopping. We've got all the fast food restaurants, all the sit-down restaurants, the shopping mall, just everything is here in Linwood. Mill Creek is more residential. So you'll still have your grocery store, your gas station, your Starbucks, your little strip shopping center. You have some nice parks, but there aren't as many like large stores, destination shopping areas. It's also just north of Bothell. Bothell is right here, and Bothell has been getting a lot of interest and attention lately because they're remodeling the Bothell Landing. So I have a video taking you through a tour of Bothell Landing, new high-rise apartments with lower level retail, kind of an urban feel there, and great school districts in this area. So Bothell has been more expensive and shooting up. Linwood is equally convenient, if not more convenient, but the school districts don't have as good ratings. So Mill Creek is the next freeway stop up the road here, and also very popular. In terms of size, Mill Creek is really only about 5 square miles. There are a couple of zip codes there if you want to look it up. 98012, 98082, and it's home to about 20,000 people. So it's a small, I would call it a suburb. It's more than a housing development. It's kind of a woodsy, park-like area with a lot of nice, newer, larger homes. By newer homes, I'm talking about 30 years old, but they're not 80 years old. So time marches by. I'm 40 plus now, so some things that seem newer are not actually all that new. Just because it was built in my lifetime no longer apparently means that it's really young and fresh. So driving into Seattle, your drive time is going to be about half an hour from Mill Creek to Seattle, similar half an hour to Bellevue, because they really are about equal distance down the highway there. And then up to Everett is only going to be 17 minutes. So that's assuming pretty good traffic, but we've had a lot better traffic recently. And 405, the north-south freeway here that goes from Linwood down the east side of the lake. This is 405. It's a loop off of I-5 freeway, and they have what are called a fast track pass. It's a little box that you attach to your windshield, and you can load it with money. And then if it's loaded with money, or if you're a high occupancy vehicle like a carpool with 3 people or more, you can go in the fast lanes, which are restricted. They do charge you money for driving there, so it might be 75 cents for your trip. It might be $3 for your trip, depending on how far you're going and how heavy traffic is. Typically, the more crammed and packed the freeway is, then the more they're going to charge you to go into those high occupancy vehicle or fast track lanes. But the good thing is that you can go, and you can go swiftly. If you've got to be at work at a certain time, you don't have time to sit in traffic, you can zip along those fast track lanes. You just have to pay for it. But sometimes time is money, and that's okay. So that's where Mill Creek is located on the map. Now, for a lot of people, they don't like to drive into the city because we talked about it can be kind of slow if there's rush hour, if you're driving during rush hour, and sometimes parking downtown, especially downtown Seattle, has very expensive parking. Bellevue also has a lot of paid parking options, but some people just also don't like fighting traffic. If you want to reclaim that time either to read on your phone or to play a game or actually work and do emails, then you might want to look at the public transportation options. So from Mill Creek, if you want to bus into Seattle, it's going to take an hour. There are different bus lines that run at different times of day. Similar, about an hour and 15 minutes for Bellevue. And eventually at some point there will be, the buses are going to be routing people toward their light rail stations. So right now, where the star is, whoops, that's my address. It's for my office. It's right by Northgate Mall, which has been demolished, and they have a light rail station here. This is as far north as the light rail comes, and the light rail basically follows I-5 freeway and goes down to SeaTac, which is our airport. So that's the length of the light rail run. It goes to the University of Washington, it goes to downtown Seattle, it goes to SeaTac Airport, and it has a lot of stops in between here. So should you need to go to the airport, you can hop on this and go down. It is a little bit slow because they're making a lot of stops. So right now, they used to have buses that would take you all the way down to downtown Seattle, but how they're doing the buses right now is they're taking you to the light rail station, and then you take the light rail into downtown Seattle. So that might be changing, and it looks like we got a winter storm warning. Hey. So winter storm warning in Seattle is basically like it's going to be windy and rainy. I'm not anticipating too much excitement with that. Now, because of fair housing, I am certainly not supposed to be directing or pointing anybody based on any of the protected classes. We can't talk about race and those types of things. So if you want to research that, it's important for you to go into your own data resources, but it should not really be an issue. The Seattle area is very egalitarian. Where we go one, we go all. I don't know if that's the same as egalitarian or the opposite. Anyway, we're very open to everybody. There's a lot of signs that people put in their yard about how accepting they are of other different people. So no real concerns on that front. I think the biggest thing to be aware of is just that a lot of people with families like to be near other families, like they want other kids for their children to play with and that type of thing. So one thing you can do is just knock and ask the neighbors in a development that you're looking at. The average age in this area is 38. This is pretty typical for a lot of our areas. And so what you're going to want is just to look at things that attract children and families with children, like looking for parks, sideways, walkable areas, affordable housing that young families can afford to get into, and that type of a thing. So if you want more data, you can always go to datausa.io and check out the census data for the area of Mill Creek, Washington. Likewise, you can take a look at the average income in this area. This is a fairly high income area. There aren't as many apartments and rentals. There aren't as many students in this area. This tends to be a place where there are more established households based on the price of the homes in the area. So higher income for this area. Also, having good school districts attracts people with more money. So the average income in this area could be reported a couple of different ways. The median income is $103,000. So half the people make more than that and half the people make less than that, $103,000 a year. And then the average is $128,000. So of the people who make more, they make substantially more. Pulls the average up a little bit. Like much of our beautiful Pacific Northwest, there were a lot of Native American tribes who lived here. They depended on fishing in the lakes, in the oceans, forestry, taking advantage of a lot of the natural resources in the area. And when this area was developed, it was largely developed by loggers who saw all of the trees in Western Washington and knew that they could make a lot of money on them. So this area, and especially you can tell by the name Mill Creek, there was founding here with mills, forests, and farming. So the waterways, the creeks were really good for power, so they could turn the wheel, and then that wheel could grind down corn or flour that they might need to create into cornmeal and wheat meal, which is what we call flour. And then they could also use it for running saws to cut logs and that type of thing. Creeks and waterways that were big enough were also used for transportation. So that helped people get resources in and out of the area. But this was primarily a farming area when it was becoming developed, and it stayed pretty rural, I would say, until rural for a pretty long time. I still think of it as kind of woodsy and quiet. I think a lot of the development in that area started around the mid-1900s. Some of the shopping center, one of the shopping centers there got put in 1990. There's more development been there in 2004. So it's not new, but a lot of the developments and the housing were kind of going in around that time, the 1980s and 1990s, that type of thing. So when we are looking at moving into this area, we want to ask ourselves, what can we afford? So I realize that people who are looking at moving to Seattle might be considering renting, and they might be considering buying. I'm a real estate broker, so I love working with people who are buying, but if you're renting, I want to help you out as well. So take a look at this just to give you an idea of our prices. Hopefully this won't be too much sticker shock, but I also can't promise it won't have gone up 10% or more since when you look at this, because we are currently going through a time of a lot of rent increases, and the city of Seattle does have some rental caps and some limitations on how quickly the landlords can raise the rent on the tenants. It's a very pro-tenant area. So just check, but this will give you a general idea. So for a 2-bedroom apartment in Mill Creek, we're seeing rents ranging from about $1,500 a month up to $3,000 a month. And then for a 3-bedroom house in the area, we're seeing homes costing $2,700 to $3,000. I would say that's very typical, if not higher at this point, to rent a house, $3,000 a month. I mentioned also schools. Many people who I speak with who are looking to relocate to the Seattle area and are considering Mill Creek are drawn to this location because it has excellent schools. So, you know, what school criteria you have kind of depends on what you can afford, and what if you need a big house, or if you're willing to be in a smaller like condo in order to get into a good school district or something like that. But Mill Creek has excellent schools. The Mill Creek Elementary down there is rated a 9, and 8 and 7 are also considered to be good. So you can always check on greatschools.org to see what the schools are rated in any kind of areas that you're considering. As far as childcare, this is an issue. I had a client relocating from Texas who had some concerns and ran into some very long wait lists to get into childcare. So if you're moving with young children, here are some good options for the Mill Creek area. I won't read them all, but you can see them here on the screen. And it's never too early to contact them and find out what their rates are, what their openings are going to be like, and how much they charge, and whether they have a waiting list, what their educational philosophy is, and that type of thing. Another thing that she noted to me, which was different than where she had come from in Texas, was she said that here we have a lot of in-home childcare services. So this is where somebody buys a big house, and then they might live upstairs, and then they use the downstairs space, like the living room, the backyard, the garage, those types of things, as a childcare area. So it's kind of like a a babysitter where you go to their house and they'll typically take in 5 to 10 children, depending on how many adults are going to be on the premises, the age of the children. There are different licensing requirements, but this is an in-house, small family type setting for childcare, which is somewhat more common here than other places in the area. The ones that I have listed are more like the franchises, big box businesses, and also childcare that is run through a church, right? $2,000 to $3,000 to rent and get into something. Now, looking at purchasing in this area, like I said, it's an in-demand area because of the excellent schools and the excellent commuter access, as well as the newer, nicer, larger homes that have been built in more recent decades. So if you're looking for a condo, condos are Seattle's most affordable price point home, and I realize that a lot of people don't love the idea of condos because they feel like they're living in an apartment. But some people do like it because they have that sense of community. If they need to go and travel, they have someone else, people around them keeping an eye on their place. They don't have to do any lawn mowing or anything like that, and they might have access to amenities like pools, a dog park, workout room, meeting room, those types of things. So a lot of people do enjoy the condo lifestyle. And even if it's not what you want for your forever home, it can be a fantastic stepping stone, because what I see is if people are waiting, let's say you want to buy your forever home, but that costs $1 million and you don't have enough money to buy $1 million home, you can get in the door on a condo. Let's say you buy it for $300,000 and after a couple years it goes up to $400,000. Now you will have saved more money, plus all that equity can be rolled into the down payment for the next home, making that forever home more affordable in the future. If you had just tried to save, you might not have accumulated the equity that we see as houses go up in value around here, which is a big buying power piece for folks that want to get into their other homes. For the most part in Seattle, Mill Creek, you're not going to be able to get into a home for less than $500,000 at this point. There are probably some around, but if you don't have $500,000 readily at hand, ready to go, it's going to be a condo or a townhouse in most of the neighborhoods we're looking at. So just to give you that as a baseline. Now here in Mill Creek, this is a nicer area, so we are looking at condos that are a little more expensive than some areas. They're going to start 2-bedroom condo, maybe $380,000. So $300,000 to $80,000 up to $500,000 is probably the typical condo price range. And then you can go up farther than that, but that's going to be something exotic. We don't have a lot of new construction condos in this area. It tends to be more expensive to build here. So if you like what you're seeing, but you can't find new construction and you're decided on that, I would look in Bothell or Lake Stevens as two other nearby communities with a little bit more new construction going on. Okay, so to get into a 3-bedroom house in Mill Creek, you're going to be looking at least $500,000, like I said. And here's something horrible. I have to show you this right now. Hopefully you'll be watching this years in the future when this is not the case, but we are in a very tight inventory market. I'm looking at on a tight inventory day in the middle of the week. We will usually have more inventory on the weekends, but right now we only have 2 homes for sale in Mill Creek. This is horrible. So one of these homes is a townhouse setup, a 2-bedroom townhouse for $466,000. And one of them is a nice 4-bedroom larger house that's $1.2 million, and I wouldn't be surprised if it sold for $1.4 million. We're just having a lot of bidding wars and that type of thing. So if you're deciding on buying a home, give yourself some time. You're welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions about the market, help you get connected with a lender, plan your approach. You might need to put in 5 offers before you get your home accepted, but I've had plenty of people get their first offer accepted too. So some of that depends on what type of a house you're going after, how well backed you are financially, if you have another house to sell, what's going on with that. There are a lot of factors at play. I don't want to scare anyone off because, like I said, it might be completely different by the time you watch that, but I am here to help, and we can put together a strategy, because At least for right now, we're going through a very tight inventory market, and it's getting frustrating for buyers if they don't have a good strategy in place to be able to handle this. So, like I've mentioned, I think a couple times, these are mostly like newer, well-kept homes. When I say newer, I mean within the last 30 to 40 years, as opposed to a lot of Seattle was developed, prior to the World's Fair in the 1960s. We have Queen Anne Hill has, 100-year-old homes. So this is kind of all the modern conveniences and a modern layout. A lot of 3 and 4 bedroom, 2,000 square foot homes, often 2-story homes. But this is very typical for the area. This is very typical for the Mill Creek area. You can see it has a lot of woods around it, and it's kind of tucked away. 2-car garage, some yard, but not a huge yard. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it is that you get for your $1 million. That pop thing is not good. Let's see if we can edit that out. Now I'm going to talk about some of these attractions, and this would be a great place, Miguel, for you to go to the website of these businesses and see if you can show like a screenshot of their website or any interior pictures that they might have posted on Google or something like that, that we can kind of pan through as I'm discussing, as if you're videoing me surfing on the web looking for these things. One of the things I always like to cover when I'm profiling a neighborhood like Mill Creek is what is it going to be like to actually live there. We can see the houses. If we're stuck in our house, we know what that's like. But what if you want to leave the house? What is there to do besides go to work? So in the Mill Creek area, like I said, there's a lot of low-rise, single-story, strip shopping centers, the kind of that single story where there's going to be the bank and the Starbucks and the grocery store and that type of thing. That's pretty much it for Mill Creek. There aren't a lot of other, nightclubs or big entertainments within the neighborhood itself. So what you will find is parks. They have some nice parks. There's Heron Park. There's other things like that as far as interacting with the outdoors. There's a nice library, the Mill Creek Library. But within a 15 or 20 minute drive, you can get to all sorts of stuff. So Linwood, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is the right next door, 10 minutes away. You can get to Walmart. All sorts of other shopping options are there. You can go up to Everett, which is where the Boeing airplane manufacturing plant is, and they also have a nice museum of flight up there, as well as a children's museum, which is fantastic. I used to live in Linwood, and I took my kids up there all the time. Linwood has a swimming pool and a rec center, which are fantastic. And Mukilteo, which is on Puget Sound, has a lighthouse, it has a beach park, it has a ferry that you can ride and go visit the San Juan Islands and that type of thing. So there is a lot to do in the area. I would say, you go down to Seattle or Bellevue, the sky is the limit. You've got the Fifth Avenue Theater for national musicals, you've got the Symphony, you've got small community theater plays, community college plays, all sorts of things to do. So you will not be without entertainment. It's just really a question of what entertainment is there in Mill Creek itself. And I would say, I would characterize it as more of a sleepy, suburban, quiet. You can run your errands, but if you really want to do stuff, you're going to be driving out of Mill Creek and heading into Linwood, Everett, Seattle, or Bellevue. Now, if you want to just like jump out on a date night or go out to lunch or something, there are a couple of small restaurants in the area that are very nice. There's the Wasabi Bay, which is just a little sushi roll, standard Japanese entree place there in the shopping center. There's Tablas Woodstone Taverna, which is a tapas and drinks place. There's a Thai bistro, which I love, Thai food, you guys. It's right up there with Chipotle. I like to go out to Thai food quite a bit. and sushi, which is fantastic. Cafe Neo is in Mill Creek. It has gyros and other Greek foods, so that's something that my husband learned to make early on, and he made fantastic like tzatziki sauce with yogurt. It's like plain yogurt. You put in tons of garlic, you put in cucumbers. It sounds crazy, but it's so good. So if you like Greek food, you can check out the Cafe Neo, or you can make your own. My husband's got the recipe. He'll let you have it. He never makes it anymore though. I'm gonna have to remind him. And then there's another restaurant called the Hot Iron, which is where it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and you stir fry your own ingredients, kind of like a Mongolian grill type of thing. And there's also Erang Shabu Shabu, which is a Korean barbecue place. I've got a friend, she's actually my daughter's teacher at school, who's half Korean, and so she told me when you go to Korean restaurants, it's really about like ordering something, but they bring you all of these little relishes, like all these different plates of chopped vegetables, pickled vegetables, sauces, spices, those types of things. And so those are typically unlimited. And so if you get like a beef dish or something, you could try it with lots of different bites, with lots of different sauces. So it's very tasty. If you've never had Korean food, there are a lot of places to have it out here. So we're getting toward the end, and I just want to give you a couple of recommendations of what to do next if you think you like this Mill Creek area. So please feel free to reach out to me. I am, like I said, a real estate broker. I can point you in the right direction. We can get you on track with if you're planning a move from out of the area or within the area. I've got some resources, so we can get you geared up for that. Next, I would take a look at what's currently available here. And like I said, right now there's not very much, but if we talk, I'd be happy to tell you when and how to see more inventory. So beyond that, if you like Mill Creek but you're not sure, here are some other areas that are similar to it. So Mukilteo is similar, Bothell is similar, and Woodinville is fairly similar. So if you're looking at these areas, those would be some other neighborhoods to check out, and eventually I will try to be putting out videos for all of these things so you can really get a feel for what it's like in the different neighborhoods. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to put some new videos up here for you to watch next, and if you have any questions, I'm here for you. Don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.